Lubin will come to the front, read a little bit about our newest member. You all may know Dr. Jamal Wright as the newly named Superintendent of the Little Rock School District. Growing up in Florida, Dr. Wright realized early on that teaching and education were his calling. He began his career as a 5th grade and middle school social studies teacher, but before becoming an assistant principal in Gainesville, establishing a 10-year track record as an excellent elementary and secondary school principal in both Florida and Washington, D.C. In 2013, he was named the instructional superintendent of the Denver Public Schools, where he was responsible for leading the turnaround efforts of chronically underperforming elementary schools. In just a few short years, he made enormous progress. And in 2017, Dr. Wright joined the City of Birmingham School District as the Chief Academic and Accountability Officer, where he led the school improvement process. Under his leadership, the system decreased the number of F-rated schools from 22 to only 6, and increased the number of schools rated C or above from 6 to 17. On April 11th, 2019, the Mississippi State Board of Education appointed Dr. Wright as the founding superintendent of the Mississippi Achievement School District, serving Yazoo City and Humphreys County. In 3 years, graduation rates improved from 67% to 85% in Yazoo City and from 78% to 91% in Humphreys counties. Additionally, state accreditation violations were cleared, restoring accreditation for both districts. Wright earned a Bachelor of Arts in Social Science Secondary Education and a Master of Education degree in Educational Leadership from the University of North Florida. And he earned a specialist degree in special education from the University of Florida, as well as a doctorate of education in leadership for educational equity with a specialty in early childhood special education from the University of Colorado, Denver. It's impressive. I told him I had to cut it down too, so we weren't here all day. His research interests center on system transformation, issues of equity and leadership, and early intervention for young students of color with or at risk for behavioral related disabilities. Above all of his many accomplishments, Dr. Wright is most proud to be the father of 3 beautiful young adults, Jaden, Trinity, and Joshua. We're so glad to have you in Little Rock, Dr. Wright, and especially proud to call you a fellow Rotarian. Please help me in officially welcoming Dr. Wright to our club.
Thank you, Molly. So very exciting to see new members every week, and there's more to come. Congrats again to Dr. Wright. Welcome to Club 99. A few quick reminders. The welcome reception for our Ottenheimer International Youth participants will be August 8th. This year, as you may know, they're from France. Please use the RSVP link that was in the newsletter. The membership committee is meeting immediately after Rotary Day here in this room, and our board of directors will meet today at the Clinton School right next door at 1:15. In my State of the Club a few weeks ago, I shared my vision for a fun community project to bring our region together, both sides of the river, through the lighting of the Veterans Memorial Bridge, or what many of us know as the Broadway Bridge. It's arguably the most beautiful bridge in our state, yet sadly remains unlit at night. And I believe this beautiful bridge lit at night will serve as our symbolic gift back to the community for our region's tricentennial. And with our governor here today, the nation's leading coding governor, I wanted to highlight how we can develop this project into a really impressive coding initiative for our urban school districts too. Students at Dr. Wright schools. Imagine our young people watching their sound and light LED show creations coming to life. Check out this VR video to learn more about the coding initiative for Milwaukee's Light the Home Bridge. So imagine seeing our kids here in Little Rock, North Little Rock, the entire region, wearing VR headsets and learning how to code and make these beautiful creations, and then actually being able to go out to the bridge on a Friday or Saturday night and actually seeing their shows come to life. Imagine how transformative that'll be for our kids. The shows, I love the fact that they will be able to see the shows. They learn how to code in our public schools, inspiring our next generation of tech talent right here in Little Rock. I think that's pretty cool. As you know by now, I plan to tell stories each week about Little Rock's past 300 years during our La Petite Roche Tricentennial, what I'm calling our Illuminating the Rock stories. And today, with our speaker's special connection to our Arkansas State Capitol, I'd like to tell you a little bit about its unique history. This neoclassical masterpiece is massive, standing over 20 stories tall, 440 feet long, and nearly 200 feet wide. The location and early days of construction were far from masterful, however, including its crooked site alignment. Let's start with the location. It was originally the state's first penitentiary. In fact, during the Civil War, when Little Rock was controlled by the Confederates, Union soldiers were held there. Later, when Little Rock fell to the Federals, Confederate soldiers were in turn imprisoned. By most accounts, the prison had a history of brutal and harsh conditions. Executions of convicted inmates were commonplace. The death toll was so high that a portion of the grounds were relegated to a makeshift cemetery, some in mass graves, the dead long forgotten. Late in the 19th century, and after years of disrepair at the old State House, a resolution was passed to build a new capitol. The old prison was demolished, famed architect George Mann was hired, and on July 4th, 1899, ground was broken under the direction of Capitol Building Commissioner George Donaghy, the future governor, now widely recognized as our state's father of higher education. More than 200 inmates worked on the first phase of construction, excavation for the basement and placement of its massive foundations. Problematic from the start. The most disturbing obstacle being the unearthing of those long forgotten graves, which foreshadowed the problems and controversy surrounding the Capitol's construction. After 17 months of site work and relocation of the remains to a site west of town, The cornerstone was finally laid, but many problems persisted. The building's alignment was off, costs soared, citizens resented the project, and the general contractors were accused of bribery and shoddy workmanship. By 1907, 8 full years after groundbreaking, work halted completely on the building. Donaghy was elected governor the next year and ran on the "I will finish the Capitol" platform. He quickly fired the architect and general contractor and hired well-known architect Case Gilbert. But the legislature resisted the new governor's efforts to appropriate the remaining funds. Still unfinished in 1910, Governor Donaghy deemed the building safe enough for occupation and started moving furniture and files from the old State House. But the public wasn't buying it, because 2 years later, Joseph T. Robinson would defeat Donaghy on a campaign theme partly based on Donaghy's failure to finish the building. Early that next year, Robinson, however, filled an empty U.S. Senate seat, and his successor, George W. Hayes, now with adequate funding from the General Assembly, brought Donaghy back to finish the job. In 1915, 15 years after the start of construction, our fabulous state Capitol building, made of pristine Batesville limestone, was completed at a cost of $2.2 million, more than double the original estimate. But what to make of that strange site alignment? One could make a joke about the crooked politicians that have roamed those hallways, but it won't be me. Not with our esteemed governor here with us today, or since my father and father-in-law both served there, as did Mac McClarty. But I would encourage you to look closely next time you're driving up Capitol Avenue. You can't miss the crooked alignment. A lasting reminder that although the building and the people there may not be perfect, we're all striving together to make our state a little better and leave a lasting legacy for all those that follow. And that's our Illuminating the Rock story for this week. And now I'd like for Pulaski County Judge Barry Hyde to introduce our guest speaker. Judge.
I told Denver that I also roamed those halls, and I was never crooked. I might have been a little wobbly a time or two, but that was from the battles that took place. So thank you, Denver, for asking me to be here today and introduce today's guest speaker. We've had a great lineup so far. We are honored to have the opportunity to hear from our 46th governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson. He was elected governor of our fine state in 2015, and he is now finishing his second 4-year term. His political roots run deep in Arkansas, have honorably represented Arkansas's 3rd congressional district in the U.S. House of Representatives, from 1997 to 2001. He is the immediate past chair of the National Governors Association and is the former co-chair of the Council of Governors. His resume is not only impressive, it illustrates an individual who has devoted his life to public service and improving the lives of all citizens in the state of Arkansas. For the past 7 years, I've had the honor to work closely with the governor and his staff to bolster economic opportunities, create good paying jobs, and vastly improve the infrastructure within central Arkansas. Through our partnership with the governor, Pulaski County's witnessed a surge in economic growth. The Port of Little Rock has more than doubled in size and now has approximately 8,000 permanent jobs. This is not only good for the county, but for the whole of the region. Those 8,000 workers come from the central Arkansas 23 counties. In addition, thanks to the governor Thanks to Governor Hutchinson's willingness to partner with Pulaski County on significant improvements to our local infrastructure, we can attract companies like Amazon and Trex to the region, just the most recent, and better position ourselves for future growth. While the governor and I may not always agree, I'm not sure he even knows when I disagree, and at times strongly have disagreed on probably one subject, we share the belief that we can achieve more by working together, and I appreciate that leadership. We share the belief that creating opportunities for our citizens to thrive is fundamental to growing our economy in a meaningful way. I'm proud of what we've been able to achieve together and am truly grateful for his leadership and his friendship. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Governor Asa Hutchinson.
Thank you. Thank you for the welcome, and Barry, thank you for the introduction. That means a lot to me. The only thing is I'm stunned that we actually disagree on anything. That's news to me. But you've been a great partner, and thank you for mentioning the development of the port, which is really a great success story for Central Arkansas, but also for the state. I also want to thank Denver Peacock for his recitation of the history, early history of the Capitol. And it reminded me of, because you talked about somebody running for governor. I mean, I thought I was strange running for governor. We're going to put coding in every high school, you know, but to run that we're going to finish the Capitol reminded me that Frank Keating, who is a friend of mine, he was governor of Oklahoma, and he told me the story that Oklahoma never finished their Capitol. And so they built their Capitol in a similar time frame that we did, but they never put the dome on it. And so when he got elected governor, he told the people of Oklahoma, I will put the dome on the Capitol and we're going to finish it. And he just had the belief that you got to finish something you start, that it didn't represent the state very well. Well, it became a huge political controversy. He got all kinds of concerns. He says, I'm going to raise private dollars for the dome. And he raised private dollars. He built the dome. You can go see it today. It's a beautiful Capitol, not as beautiful as ours. But if you go inside, you will see a little marketing to Exxon and to other contributors from the private sector who helped build that dome. So it's not always the best. We did it pretty well here in Arkansas. Dr. Wright, it's great to see you. And I want you to know, I am glad you are in charge of Little Rock School District. And it's so important to the state that Little Rock School District be successful. As we recruit industry that I will talk about today some, obviously it is our education system and the confidence in the schools. So we're behind you, we support you, and we wish you great success. My daughter, Sarah, whenever I was visiting here, I was asked about how my daughter, Sarah, is, and she lives here in Little Rock with her husband, Dave, and it reminded me when you mentioned Sarah that 4 years ago, when I was running for re-election, I was having a lot of events, and Sarah likes to be included with her dad from time to time. And so I told her about an event, and she sent me a text that simply said, FOMO, FOMO. And I'm sitting there, what in the world is she talking about? I didn't understand this. And so I sent her a text back and I said, yes, I want 4 more years too. Well, I want you to know today, I don't need 4 more years. 8 years is good. I'm happy with it, and been blessed over the last 4 years to enjoy leading the state of Arkansas. I just returned from Europe. I was gone last week, and I want to talk about that just for a little bit today. And I'll talk about some of our efforts over the last 8 years, some of the things we've got planned. Then I'll turn it open for questions that you might have. But the purpose of going to Europe, just like I've gone on economic development trips abroad every year except during COVID, We went and supported our aero defense industry by going to the air show in Farnborough, England. They rotate that, and I was there. And the aero defense industry in Arkansas is so important, from Dassault Falcon jet here in Little Rock, but also, of course, down in Camden and across the state. We have Lockheed Martin, we have Raytheon, we have Aerojet Rocketdyne doing incredible work and growing, needing engineers, and they're there, so we're there to support the aero defense industry. I went on into Germany and then into Austria, where I was supporting, among other things, the timber industry in Arkansas, where we have an incredible timber basket. And believe it or not, that in Austria, they have a big timber industry there, a forest products industry. And so marketing our state and what we have in South Arkansas was an incredible opportunity, and I hope that we'll have some success from those visits. And so we had a good trip there, but I wanted to offer 3 observations from my trip to Europe and my conversations with government leaders, but also with industry leaders. And first of all, please never forget the global opportunity for Arkansas. The global opportunity for bringing foreign direct investment here, for companies to invest here. And you think about it, going back to former President Bill Clinton, who went to Japan and recruited Mac Tokuson there in Conway. And since then, so many different Japanese companies have invested in our state. Germany is a big investor. Israel has companies that they own here, on and on down the list. And so Arkansas actually is the top 10 for states that have created jobs through foreign direct investment. I'm proud of that, and over the last 8 years, we've accelerated those investments, and they've really created a lot of jobs here in the state. And so it's a big opportunity for us, that investment, that global opportunity to invest in Arkansas. Secondly, which is more alarming, is simply that Europe is ready for an energy crunch and potential rationing of energy this winter, particularly in Germany, but it impacts England because it is a mix, and obviously Austria, and they're preparing for that. They're shouldering up because they're cut off, and they have the potential of being cut off from the Russian oil and gas supplies. We have sanctions on them. They've got a gas pipeline that could be shut off at any moment. And so they have made some bad decisions in the past, simply relying upon that one energy source. And they're likely to have to ration energy this fall and this winter. And they're looking ahead to prepare for that. And it impacts industry, which is not good, because that impacts our supply chain, that impacts us. And so the third point that I would make from my trip there and my conversations is that Europe continues to value and need American leadership. In every conversation, they look to the America still as someone that can lead, and they want us to lead, particularly more than China or some other economic power across the globe. And so our leadership is needed. And whenever you look at the energy policy of the United States, we need to build an independent energy supply here in the United States for our own purposes that will be energy independent. But we also have to build an energy supply and sources that we can support our allies. We don't want them dependent upon Russia or some country that is not a reliable partner. And so we need to produce, and there's hesitancy in the energy sector for investment because of inconsistent U.S. policy. And so we need to have a long-term approach that includes enhancing and increasing our energy production. So I hope that we can do that and we can build on that. You know, 8 years ago, and I think I've been here, Denver, just about every year. I've tried to make it a habit. I might have missed one. Every year. But I've enjoyed coming to Rotary here, and I value this opportunity. And so I look back as I come here over the last 8 years, and you think about some of the things that we've been able to do together as a state. And for me, I start with a philosophy. I wanted to grow the private sector of our economy faster than the government sector of our economy. And so the focus was making sure that we can support industry. And when I say support it, unleash them to do what they do best. And Arkansas creates entrepreneurs better than anyone else. And so we wanted to unleash that. And part of that was lowering our tax rate that was keeping us from being competitive. And so the individual income tax rate when I got elected was 7%. It is now down to 5.5%, and we're scheduled to lower that down to 4.9% in the coming years. Hopefully we'll have a special session, which I intend to call, that we'll be able to accelerate that and reduce that rate to the 4.9% more quickly. Those tax cuts have come at a time when we wanted to be competitive with our surrounding states, and Texas is growing, and Tennessee, we want to be competitive. And so we lowered that rate consistently and carefully. And that puts more money in individuals' pockets that they can spend, that they can make their own decisions. It helps us to grow our economy. And so we didn't run into the situation that Oklahoma ran into or Kansas ran into, that they cut their taxes too quick and sharply, and they couldn't provide their services. Ours was just the opposite. We did it carefully. And in the last session, we had the largest increase in formula funding for our K through 12 education that we've ever had. We put more money into that. We put money into higher ed. We have supported our workforce education. Something that's been very important to me is our foster children and to making sure that we have the care for them. We've done that. We've expanded Medicaid, and so health coverage in Arkansas has been expanded all through the previous administration, and then we continued it in my administration. And so even with those investments, we have gone from $0 in our savings account. And when I say $0 in our savings account, it's because we had a habit for 100 years of forecasting our revenues, and then we would spend all of that. And that's what we did every year. And so I asked, why can't we create a savings account for our state? And that savings account has gone from $0 to $1.2 billion. And that simply means that we have 20% of our budget in a savings account for an economic downturn, for when the economy is not as strong or something else that is unpredictable. In addition, unbelievably, and Mac mentioned to me that it's challenging sometimes to manage a surplus. And he will remember the last time we had a balanced budget at the federal level, and that was when President Clinton from Arkansas was in the White House and I was in Congress, and we balanced the budget. And that was the last time, which is over 20 years ago. In Arkansas, we have a different pattern, and now we have a $1.6 billion surplus. And that's why we need to return some of that to the taxpayers. In terms of job creation, 3.2% unemployment rate. More importantly, you have to measure how many people are employed and in the workforce. And we have 106,000 more people employed in Arkansas now than in January of 2015. We signed 560 new incentive agreements for new companies or expanding our existing companies here to create jobs. It's created 27,000 new jobs with $14 billion in capital investment. One story, if I might, because I just came back from the National Governors Association and they get tired of me telling this story, but whenever, and I do it in Europe, but it's a selling point for Arkansas that, aero defense is our leading export, but manufactured export. But whenever you look at our recruitment of U.S. steel into Eastern Arkansas with a $3 billion investment, creating 900 jobs with an average salary of $100,000. That changes the climate in Eastern Arkansas. It combines with what we did with Big River Steel, with Nucor Yamada Steel. I'm able to say that when that goes into production, Arkansas will pass Pennsylvania as the #1 steel producing state in the nation. That gets people's attention, and that puts us in a position to recruit a automobile manufacturer that we haven't had before, but the steel that's being produced in Eastern Arkansas is consistent with what goes into the automobile manufacturing. David Burritt is the CEO and chair of U.S. Steel. I asked him, why'd you pick Arkansas? Because we had to compete with multiple states. And his answer was, it's easy to do business in Arkansas. And I hate to pick on Pennsylvania, but he said that you have to have a permit to build a plant like that. You have to have an air permit. And that we got the air permit for them, and they will break ground, which they've done. They will invest $3 billion and they will open up for business. And he says, we will open up for business in Arkansas manufacturing steel in this plant before you could ever get a permit in Pennsylvania. And so that makes a difference for industry. And that's why I have that philosophy of let's make it easy for industry to do business in this state. Part of that story is the Port of Little Rock that Judge Hyde mentioned that has had great success, but we've also grown the technology sector here in this state that started with our computer science initiative, where we went from 1,100 students taking computer science across the state to almost 13,000, with the greatest increase being among girls and minority students. And because we went from 20 teachers that could teach computer science, we now have over 650 teachers certified to teach that. And because of that, the legislature this last session said we're going to make it a requirement to graduate. We're one of only 3 states, I think they've added another one now. We have 4 states, including Arkansas, that require it as a graduation credit. And when that happens, all of a sudden, you've got technology companies knocking on our door and saying, we want to be able to access that talent, not by recruiting them to Silicon Valley, but by locating a technology company here in this state. And so it's not just manufacturing, but it's technology, it is coding for the future, and that gives us great opportunities as well. And so those are some of the things that I've worked on. I wanted to be the jobs governor. I think that we've accomplished that. We've also kept in mind the other needs of our state. Today is significant because during the last special session, I think it was a regular session, we passed support for law enforcement, in which every certified full-time law enforcement officer in the state of Arkansas will get a $5,000 bonus. It's one time, but it shows our appreciation to them. It helps them a great deal, and it encourages our local law enforcement agencies and cities to be able to do more to support them. Those checks, I believe, are going out today. And so it's an exciting time to be able to say we've supported those that protect us every day. We've got a lot to do in the coming months. I'm not quitting. We've got broadband to deploy. We've already deployed $392 million in grants to expand broadband, high-speed internet into the rural areas of our state. It's covered over 100,000 households as a result of that expanded coverage and grants. We have more than 110,000 households that remain to be covered. So we're going to be investing more money in rural broadband in the coming months. I'm going to continue our efforts on job creation because you get momentum. You want to be able to continue that. You want to be able to close some of the deals. And by the way, I'll just give accolades to our team at economic development led by Mike Preston, a terrific job that they're doing, partnering with our local economic development partners as well. And then we're going to have a special session if you haven't read about. And we're going to have that. It's going to be very simple. Hopefully it'll be quick. Hopefully we'll have agreement as we go in there. But we want to be able to lower those taxes, accelerate that, as well as put $50 million into a grant program for local school districts in terms of school safety initiatives to help them to finance, whether it is surveillance or whether it is better fencing or whether it is more secure doors. We want to be able to have a grant program for that purpose, and that will be subject to the special session as well. You might have read that I created the Council on Advanced Mobility. And I remind you that we've led in transportation in Arkansas, and we will continue to do so, but transportation in the future might look different than it does today. And so we're looking at autonomous vehicles, drone delivery that we're already doing here in the state. And we want to make sure that we can have the support for those blossoming industries and new technologies here in the state and break down any barriers. So I look forward to a report from that Council on Future Mobility. We have a partnership right now with GATIC. Of course, the partnership is Walmart and GATIC, but GATIC is a autonomous delivery vehicles that has delivered, have delivered goods with over 200,000 autonomous miles to date right here in Arkansas. And so be aware, life is changing, catch up with it, and Arkansas is going to be on the lead in that area as well. Let me close by just talking about the future for a minute from a personal standpoint. I've had a lot of opportunity to serve in the public arena, and nothing has been more special to me than serving as governor of Arkansas and having that privilege for the last 8 years. But as I look to the future, I want to make sure that our country goes in the right direction. I want to make sure that my voice helps shapes the direction of my party and our country. And so I formed America Strong and Free, which is a educational effort, but it's my national platform that will talk about the principles of common sense conservatism, that will look to the future and problem-solving leadership versus just simply complaining about the past and the problems of the past. And so that's my vision for the future. Stay tuned for more from America Strong and Free. And that name is special to me because I served under Ronald Reagan's leadership, and I have traveled and worked abroad at post 9/11 in building security for the United States. And I know how important it is that we maintain our leadership on freedom and security, whether it's the border or whether it is the threats that we face today. And so that's the challenge for the future. I've never been more excited about it. And I look forward to hopefully someday coming back to Rotary again and giving another report. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I left 10 minutes, and so that's time for a couple of questions, perhaps, if anyone has a question or a comment or an argument to make. Yes. Thank you. It's special. And are you teacher? You're a teacher? Okay. Well, I love lawyers too. Thank you for saying that. And it is special. It is important. And I really I want to applaud the General Assembly for recognizing the need to do more for teachers. I think we have moved the ball forward. I've advocated for teacher salary increases. And while we'll not be able to get it done for this year, hopefully the bonuses that they've approved will be helpful. I think it's going to be varying in amounts and a little bit inconsistent out there, but it shows the support that is there for our teachers. And it sets the stage next January in the next administration. Hopefully the legislature will really kick that in gear even more because we have to be competitive. Thank you for raising that. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you. I was asked to repeat the question, which was a comment about the pandemic that we went through and leadership during that time. And let me tell you, it's been tough on everybody. And the last thing I want to hear, which is what I heard, is that the White House is creating a special office for monkeypox. That's not what I wanted to hear. But, you know, in terms of the pandemic, let me just brag on our teachers again. There was a national study done and recognizing the need for in-classroom instruction during the pandemic and how we lost so much when we went virtual, and most of the states went virtual, and we were determined to go back with in-classroom instruction in that 2021 timeframe. And as a result of that, and the teachers were out there on the front lines that recognized the importance of it as well. But they did a national review, and Arkansas was #2 in the nation in terms of days of in-classroom instruction during the pandemic. And that makes a difference. And by the way, we beat Texas and Florida. So that's a hallmark for our teachers, and I think it reflects a commitment that we had on a very important issue. You all have been terrific. It's great to be with you today. Denver, I'll turn it back to you.
Don't leave just yet, Governor. We've got a few things for you. Thank you, Judge Hyde, for the introduction. Governor, as part of our Illuminate the Rock theme this year, we are donating books to area elementary schools and resource centers in Dr. Wright's school district. Sampling of the books is like the one that you'll be getting today. These are from Little Rock Connected authors. So we have several of those that we'll be donating at the end of the year in your name and all the speakers that were part of our year for Illuminate the Rock. Just want to give you that as well. One of our Illuminate the Rock pins for the year. Wear that proudly in all your travels. But then one really special honor we want to bestow upon you today. As I said earlier, we've only had a handful, literally a handful of honorary members over the last several decades of Club 99. One of them is here today, and Matt McClarty. I mentioned Senator Bumpers and Senator Pryor, Joe Luck and Craig O'Neill. And with the unanimous support of your board of directors, we are bestowing an honorary membership on Governor Asa Hutchinson. So. Hold on. The plaque reads, honorary membership. May it be known that Governor Asa Hutchinson is hereby proclaimed an honorary member of the Rotary Club of Little Rock and is thus accorded the fellowship and privileges of such membership. Dated this 26th day of July 2022, Denver Peacock, President, Rotary Club. We also have this beautiful membership badge. So you can put that on. That allows you to come back anytime you want, president or not. We'd love to have you as our guest at the Rotary Club of Little Rock. All you have to do is pay for your lunch. That's it. Anyway, thanks again for all you've done in mirroring all the things that we cherish at the Rotary Club of Little Rock, whether it be literacy, working with our schools and teachers, honoring our law enforcement, a lot of the things that we do to shine the light on our community at Rotary Club of Little Rock, you've done as governor. And we just wanted to say again, thank you for your 8 years of loyalty to our club and coming back literally every year of your governorship. And we very much appreciate all that you've done and all that you have still to do. So thanks again. And with that, we are adjourned.
Great show, great show.